After numerous reshoots and delays, did Dark Phoenix rise up from the ashes left by the lackluster predecessor X-Men Apocalypse? Nope. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things critics are saying about Dark Phoenix.
We're doing space missions now. Cool.
For this list, we're taking a look at the general critical consensus for the latest X-Men movie. Number 10. Continuity problems galore. The X-Men film franchise has become notorious for its various continuity errors. The inconsistencies in Dark Phoenix raise so many questions that not even Deadpool could clean up the timeline at this point.
You know what to do.
Lindsay Barr of the Associated Press pointed out that, quote, "The main action is set in 1992, a decade after the events in Apocalypse, and 30 years after the events in X-Men First Class. And you might find yourself wondering just how old are all of these mutants and what is their skincare regime?"
Perfection.
Seeing as how the first X-Men movie came out in 2000, we have a hard time believing James McAvoy is gonna look like Patrick Stewart and Michael Fassbender will look like Ian McKellen in just 8 years.
Why do you come here, Charles?
Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers?
Number 9. It can't compete with the MCU. Dark Phoenix is notably the first X-Men movie to be distributed by Disney.
We've had our differences, but we're the only chance you have.
That being said, a majority of the film's production was overseen by 20th Century Fox before the company was officially acquired by the Mickey. Although Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige reportedly evaluated the script, Dark Phoenix is sadly a far cry from the MCU's recent offerings. William Bibbiani of The Wrap negatively compared the film to Captain Marvel, which he felt did a much better job at tackling similar themes, characters, and ideas.
Well, I won't tell your boss if you don't tell mine.
Lindsay Barr also noted that, quote, "It probably also doesn't help that this is coming on the heels of Avengers Endgame. Here's hoping the X-Men have better luck once they're inevitably brought into the MCU."
I like this one.
Number 8. Returning actors seem tired in their roles. In First Class, a fresh-faced generation of actors breathed new life into younger versions of the X-Men. After nearly 8 years, though, several performers seem ready to move on. Jennifer Lawrence has made it no secret that she's not a fan of having to wear Mystique's blue body makeup, suggesting she may leave the franchise after Apocalypse. While Lawrence did return for Dark Phoenix, Soren Anderson of the Seattle Times wrote that, quote, "The juice has been squeezed out of her with respect to the part."
She should be dead.
Thankfully, she's not.
Anderson further stated that the performances overall, quote, "feel enervated," including Michael Fassbender as Magneto.
You do the jazz hand.
Jazz hands meets constipated stance.
It's the end of an era for the X-Men, and a lot of the actors look like they're just trying to get past the finish line.
All right.
Number 7. A few performances still stand out.
I basically did everything. And Gene did a little, like, towards the end, but it was mostly all me.
Whereas some actors appear all too eager to retire from their roles, a few performances have received acclaim from critics. Sophie Turner's dark turn as Jean Grey has stood out as a saving grace in various reviews. Johnny Oleksinski of the New York Post felt that Turner did justice to her role, writing, quote, "She's intensely vulnerable here, and you feel for her quest to fill the childhood void the death of her parents left." Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian found James McAvoy's Charles Xavier to be, quote, "the most interesting aspect," calling him, quote, "more opaque, more worldly, more secretive, and drinking more heavily."
You should understand better than anyone that we're only ever one bad day away from them starting to see us as the enemy again.
While the aforementioned reviews were still more negative than positive, Turner and McAvoy in particular at least managed to prevent a complete disaster. Number 6. Simon Kinberg drops the ball in his directorial debut.
I'm sorry, Logan, but they sent back the wrong man.
You're right. I am.
Let's get this straight. Dark Phoenix is essentially supposed to be an apology for X-Men The Last Stand, which previously botched the same classic comic storyline. So, Fox's solution was to hand the project over to Simon Kinberg, who co-wrote The Last Stand? Not the best idea. Yeah. To Kinberg's credit, he has produced some great films like The Martian, and even wrote the screenplay for a great X-Men film, Days of Future Past. That being said, he also scribed X-Men Apocalypse and worked on the script for 2015's Fantastic Four.
What?
Dark Phoenix was written and directed by Kinberg, and sadly, it shows in the worst ways. According to Todd McCarthy of The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "Simon Kinberg's directorial debut lacks the exclamation point fans have justifiably been hoping for. Number 5. Its female empowerment themes are admirable, but undercooked. Numerous reviews have mentioned that Dark Phoenix tries to get across a message of female empowerment, the keyword being tries.
Are you threatening me?
That's right.
That would be a bad idea.
Todd McCarthy wrote, quote, "At its heart, this is a story about what an immeasurably talented woman chooses to do with her life. Unfortunately, it doesn't play like one, as Kinberg pitches his script in the most melodramatic direction possible." William Bibbiani also took issue with how Professor X suppresses Jean's powers, feeling that the film is more about, quote, redeeming him for hurting a woman, not so much a film about the woman he wronged.
I'm sorry for what she did, but I can't let you go in there.
You're always sorry, Charles, and there's always a speech.
Critics aren't against Mystique's idea to change the team name to X-Women, but the film's strong female characters and the actresses who portray them clearly could have used a better script. Number 4. It's bad, but not necessarily the worst X-Men movie ever. In case you haven't figured it out, Dark Phoenix is no X2, Deadpool, or Logan. Is it really worse than X-Men Origins Wolverine, though? Well, perhaps only time will tell, but some critics aren't quite ready to give the film that dubious honor. Lindsay Barr opened her review saying, quote, "The good news is Dark Phoenix is neither an apocalypse nor is it X-Men Apocalypse, but this latest installment is not exactly a solid step forward or a satisfying ending for anyone."
I'm sorry, I didn't stop it sooner.
IGN's Jim Vejvoda shared a similar sentiment, writing, quote, "The film is marginally better than the previous telling of the Phoenix saga, X-Men The Last Stand, and it's certainly better than the bloated and excessive X-Men Apocalypse. But Dark Phoenix is still a disappointing finale."
Why did you make me do that?
Number 3. It doesn't make up for The Last Stand. Fox has a tendency to make the same mistakes twice. We didn't think 2015's Fantastic Four could sink any lower than their 2005 cinematic outing, but only a decade later we got an even worse reboot.
Gotta say, it's fantastic.
Say that again?
Likewise, The Last Stand set the bar pretty low, which makes it all the more frustrating to see Dark Phoenix flame out.
You think you can fix me?
Jean, you are not broken.
In his review for AV Club, A.A. Dowd noted that, quote, "The franchise deserved a mulligan, considering how badly The Last Stand handled the Dark Phoenix saga." He found little redemption in this film, however, writing, quote, "It still remains locked down by a very limited idea of what an X-Men movie can be, and a very small vision of one of the most iconic epics in superhero fiction."
This is your fault, Charles.
Number 2. It's a poor adaptation of a great comic storyline. Come on, Hollywood, this shouldn't be that hard. The Dark Phoenix saga is not only one of the most revered X-Men tales, but one of the best Marvel storylines ever. So how is it possible that we've now gotten 2 adaptations that fail to live up to the source material? Soren Anderson lamented, quote, "Though the movie takes its title from the well-known Dark Phoenix saga from the X-Men comic books, writer-director Simon Kinberg diverges significantly from the source material."
Are you threatening me?
That's right.
That would be a bad idea.
The villainous mastermind and the so-called M'Kron crystal, key elements in the comic, are nowhere to be found. It's hard to say if we'll ever get a critically acclaimed Dark Phoenix movie, but at least we'll always have the animated series.
Do you really think your puny powers mean anything to me?
Not quite at the end yet. Almost there though. Just be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Alright, back to business. Number 1. It's a disappointing end to the franchise. While the X-Men franchise has had its ups and downs over the past 20 years, it'll always be remembered for kicking off a golden age of superhero movies. Too bad it's all ending on such a sour note. Granted, New Mutants is still coming out, and Disney/Marvel has been vague about how the X-Men will tie into the MCU. From the look of it though, this will probably be the last time we see these characters in this continuity with this cast.
You're my family, Jean. Stop, no matter what.
Stop, stop, stop!
X-Men deserve to go out with a bang, but as Brian Truitt of USA Today put it in his review, quote, "If this is indeed the end, Dark Phoenix finishes off the X-Men movie saga in frustratingly middling fashion. More like X-Men The Last Straw."
Tell me how we fix this, Charles. Tell me what to do. I don't know what to do.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.